those things, honestly, like I've always seen myself as someone that I don't know that people could understand or tolerate, because the way that I am is consistent. It's not like I have that switch off, and I can do the normal chats and I can do that, but typically the way I am is very energetic, and then I speak in certain ways, and so I've never really, and I've often felt like with some of the things I've been shown for my purpose, I'm like, oh, well, I couldn't, how would I fit in a relationship, or, those sorts of things. But then I realized, and so what happened the other day, and this might help you, so that's why I'm going to go into it, is I had this fear that I wouldn't hear from this person again. And that fear kept popping into my awareness. And I was like, look, okay, there's something clearly I'm not wanting to see. If that's the fear, if this thought keeps coming into my head, well, what isn't it I want to see? And it wasn't the fear so much of what I wasn't seeing, wasn't the fear so much of being alone. It was the fear of actually being in a connection. And it was the fear of actually sharing that life, love connection. And that fear that I would hurt somebody. That's always one that I've had, and often why I've said no to many opportunities in life, because I've always felt that I would hurt somebody, because I'm not very empathetic in some degrees, and I can be, if something wasn't to work out, I'm aware I have the capabilities to go, oh, okay, that's okay. I can just move on and put my awareness on that I need to do. I know it's not personal. I appreciate I'm different. They've got their journey. I've got mine. And so I've never really been someone that got attached to things. And so I've always felt that I would hurt people by my sort of what some people may see as, but it's not intended in callousness. Whereas for me, it's genuine, unconditional love. Like, no, like you could have this real, genuine life of happiness with someone else, or, and I don't know that I can give that. And so what I saw was what I'd never let myself see, other than with my ex-husband, who, when I saw him, the moment I saw him, I just went, he is going to change my life. And I had that knowing in that moment, and by God, he did, in the most profound ways. And I'm so grateful to all of the connection that I had with him. But yet since then, I'm like, no, I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to waste people's time. And I'm too much for people. And I never saw myself, I never gave myself the opportunity to visualize the reality of a lifelong connection. I never allowed myself to see that. I could see so clearly always the single life, all of those things. Yep, I'd let myself see that. But I never let myself see the connected life, the union, the sharing. And that's what it took. It was me facing that the other night in a meditation, after I'd spent this time with that person, taking that time and going, you know what? I'm going to let myself see it. I am going to let myself see a life that I have never let myself see. I'm going to let my imagination, my visions, my knowing, my love, to let me see what is actually possible if I remove the restraints of the limitations of what I saw possible. Like, I genuinely only ever saw it possible to be solo. And even if I was in a relationship, even with my husband, we were together for 6-7 years, I was always waiting for it to end. I didn't believe it was possible to have that life love. And I'd never let myself see it. And it's just literally like, if you choose to do it, Jace, it's one of those things that just asking yourself, and I do feel I'm going to do a guided meditation to this at some point, but just allowing yourself to truly just say, okay, well, what would I like in that connection? What are those things that would bring me that joy and that feeling of knowing and acceptance with that other person, that I no longer have to fear them leaving or not being accepted by them? What are the things in myself that I see that others wouldn't want or would walk away from? And seeing those things as actually, look at their benefits, look at the joys those things they can bring, instead of seeing, like I see, I'm a very intense person. And so I've always seen that as something that might push people away. But yet actually that might be something that the other person helps ground me and helps sort of balance that intensity. And so it's not that I always have to, you know, we're very much who we are when we're on our own. And especially when you've been single for such a long time, you have a very strong sense of who you are as a single person. Yet you forget the opportunities that are opened up when you share with somebody else, and that even though you have that strong sense of self of who you are by yourself, we can still be that sense of self, yet open ourselves up to other senses of self and other aspects of self by being with somebody else. And so it's not about, well, I'm this person and this is all I can ever be. It's about, okay, well, there are things that actually in me might shift, and I'm open to shifting through that connection. And so, yeah, it's one of those things that I think giving yourself the permission to know its possibility, giving yourself the permission to ask yourself the questions of actually, what do I want? How would I like to feel with that person? And actually honoring that and your answers to yourself. And it's not about putting a time or an expectation or a demand on it, and that this is what I want to happen and this is what's got to happen. But those feelings of yourself, in yourself, you know, not necessarily also the expectations upon the other, what you need them to be, what you need them to do, how they need to make you feel, but how you feel in yourself whilst with that other person. That you can feel free enough to be yourself whilst with them. And look at the things that you would like to experience in yourself whilst connected with another. So yeah, and that's one of the things I always used to think too, like, oh, that's just one thing I can't change. And it's like, well, I'm still only 37 for another few days, but or about a couple of weeks, but it's like I've still got so much life ahead of me. Why have I made that decision so early? You know, I might not meet my life love partner till I'm 60, but that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's not about it happening now. It's about finding that genuine life love and being prepared to wait for it to appear. But yeah. But it's nice to feel that feeling and that excitement of, oh, well, maybe there is other possibility for me in that connection. So yes, I send that to you too, Jace. Know that it's not a life of just solitude, that's the life that if we choose that, that's definitely the life that we will create. Whereas if we allow ourselves the possibility of another life, then we can create that too.
So I don't think it's the fact that I've chose it. It's just how life has always been.
Yeah.
I've sort of accepted it rather than chose it.
Yeah.
I have.
And the acceptance of it's so purposeful, though. Knowing that there's that genuine happiness and that acceptance of life in that alone, but not alone, but in that solo journey. But seeing that there's, I guess, because that's all the experience has been, that's all the experience we can reference.
Yeah.
Whereas there's so much more that we haven't experienced either, you know, like, and yet that doesn't mean that that's not possible. I think often we get stuck in our worlds of, because we've only experienced so much, that's all that's still to come. Yeah. Yet we do not know how much we do not know, and how much there is still to come. And that's the excitement of life, you know, that we just don't know what's around that corner. And that's just, that to me is what excites me, not knowing what is around that corner and going, you know what, that is what it has been to date. And I'm so grateful for that, because I have such a good grounding and knowing of self and connection to self. Yet that doesn't mean that's all there ever is or all there ever will be.
Yeah. I'm a lot older than you, though, so...
That's all right. Like I said, I might not be till I'm 60.
I'm 50 next year.
You've still got half your life.
Well, I've done about half.
Oh, we could have microchips and everything. I'm just kidding. But yeah.
Yeah, one of the things
I don't know whether we really, well, I don't know whether it's necessary to be with the same person forever. I mean, I know that's probably a very strange thing to say in a group of normal people, but I know there's only the three of us here.
And we're not normal.
And we're not normal.
No. And I just don't think, I think the expectations of a relationship put upon us by old beliefs and society and morals and, you know, other things, you expect to be married and that relationship lasts till the day you die, you know. And I don't believe that that's probably in everybody's best interest to do that. And even in a relationship, it's still a solo journey. It's still solo. You know, when I hear you guys say, you know, that you're on your own and it's a solo journey, it's still a solo journey for me, and I've got a partner. It just means that I suppose at times you haven't got quite as much time to spend on yourself. You know, if you want a relationship to work, obviously there's a compromising. So, you know, but yeah, I think that the attachment to the outcome of a relationship being a long term or the one you'll have till the day you die, I think that just puts so much pressure on people and so much, you know, fear and so much, you know, uncertainty, because it's I don't believe that it's like that really, you know. No. Even though people think that it should be, but I just don't know whether it's supposed to be.
And that's the thing, like, because even with people that I've met in the past, you know, they've said, oh, are you up for a relationship? And it's like, it's not that I'm not up for a relationship. It's just that I too feel very similarly to you, Karen. And in that sense of, and I don't mean this because I'm, you know, need lots of different partners. I don't mean it in that way.
No.
But when I can't lie. So if I'm with somebody and they ask me that, it's like, I sort of have to say no. I don't want a relationship, because a lot of people have a very limited perspective of even what a relationship is. And for me, it's, you know, I really allowed myself to see the other day that in that connected union, that I don't have to have this life of somebody having to live together.
No, that's what I was
That's one of my things. Is like, I just don't feel that I could live with somebody permanently. And so that's often why I've said no to relationships, and that's what a lot of people want. You know, I don't know that I could have that connection where I only interact with that one person, or they're the only person that I grow from. And you know, very much similar to you, Karen.
Or share your love with, even. Like, really, at the end of the day, you know. Yeah.
And there's, because too, you know, there's people we meet at different points. And, you know, I know for when I made that commitment to my husband and I made that choice to marry him, in that moment, that was my choice to commit my life to him. Yet, if I had said to him prior to that, yeah, I want a relationship, but it's only going to be for this amount of time, and then I'm going to have to go find other people and learn different things, probably wouldn't have ended up getting married.
No.
Yet we had to sort of feel that in order to make that choice to grow the way we did, to then go on to meet other people. And I definitely agree with you. It's definitely not just the one version. And I think too, that's one of the reasons why I often and previously have seen myself as being sort of experiencing this journey without that connection, because it was like, I just don't know that anyone else would really want that or feel confident enough in that and trusting enough in a relationship where it doesn't have to be that neediness or that requirement or that attachment.
I think you'll be surprised. I think you'll be very surprised.
Well, I have been, and that's why the other day when I reconnected with this person, I just started allowing myself to see, it's not just you know, there's a lot of people that are open to different things, and it's only been sort of similarly with you, Jess, my experience to date that had sort of allowed that. And it was one of those things where I was aware that if I was to go into a connection with somebody or union with somebody, that I have to be honest with the fact up front, and I always have been, which is why things don't evolve, with the fact that I don't know that this is forever. And not everyone likes to hear that. So it's but now I can see that, yeah, it's actually something where that life love, it doesn't have to be, and even in saying that life love connection union isn't necessarily that you meet someone and you stay together forever, but you may meet that person, be together, and then separate, but you still share that union, you still share that connection, that love, and it doesn't end. Just because you might not share the time or the life together doesn't mean that connection ends.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting one, the old love, isn't it?
Yes.
It's exciting. It's very exciting.
I say, I've thought about the mindset probably the last 20, 30 years that relationships only last a period of time.
Yeah.
Before, not necessarily things go wrong, but you probably grow apart or things change in your life. Things
and
change
you evolve.
Yeah. So I've
heard that 7-year rule where, well, not a rule, but that 7-year thing, which I believe in. Yeah, you know, just, you know, you should be able to either renew your vows or part your ways, you know, because if you're not growing together at the same time, then, you know, then that seems to be how it unfolds for a lot of people. And then they stay because they've got this, you know, these beliefs that don't belong to them, that they've made a commitment and they have to suffer.
Stick to it.
And stick to it or make it work or do without or, whatever, instead of just, I just think just take each day as it comes and whatever day, you know, whatever brings that day, just live in the moment and do that. And if that's the same for a couple of days or a couple of months or a couple of years, then so be it. But when it expires, and just like any other animal really, or, you know, any other relationship, you know, you just part.
Yeah. And it's also one of those things, my parents are still together, and they got together, my mum was 14, 15 when they met. And so one of those, you know, it was always one of those things that I used to think, and not that it's a belief now, but when I was younger, was I had to get it then in order for it to be special. And it had to be long term in order to be real. You know, there were so many of the beliefs that I had around the fact that if it didn't last, then it wasn't real and it wasn't meant to be. And it was, you know, these are when I was in my 20s, you know, beliefs, but they were things that I still, even though I had addressed consciously, you know, became very aware of the other day that I hadn't actually released energetically. You know, that I still, even though on a conscious level, can appreciate and value the shifting and the changing and interconnection of different relationships, I still held inside of me that, oh, well, I've sort of missed my boat to have that connection because I'm too old now, or this or that. And it's just like, wow, I couldn't believe that was so, and I think why I was so unwell yesterday, because it was such a deep-seated sort of fear that was held inside of me, that I had missed my time, and so deep that I just hadn't seen it. You know, I'd never let myself see it. So nice to release those things, and like you say, just to be as they are, take it as it is. And you know, I think we're coming into an age now where people are becoming more awake and seeing too that we don't need to put those sort of demands onto another and those expectations onto another, that it's about honouring yourself and the journey you're on with them for the time you're with them. So yeah, nice.
rolling with the punches.
The first thing that comes up is, like you've just said, is be aware of what you've said and bring presence to what you've just said yourself, in the fact that you are manifesting everything you're putting out for. And you're also putting out that you don't feel valued there.
Yes.
You're also putting out that your time is expired there. And it's not just recently, you've been putting that out for quite a while.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
you are getting back exactly what you are manifesting. And because it's sort of like, well, if you're putting out that I'm not valued and you're receiving all of your manifestations, you're going to receive that you're not valued. And you're going to receive all those things that you're setting out. So it's either, I guess, a space of one you can connect into and ask, okay, what else would you like to be doing with your time? And that's sort of a very purposeful one. It's one where you haven't given yourself that permission to really delve into that yet, which is why you want to keep working still. Because you don't know what else you'd be doing if you didn't work.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so maybe look at that. How would you like to enjoy your time, and what would be your purpose and your passion that you would like to spend your time on if you weren't working? Because the other thing is, if you're feeling as though you're in a supported space, you know, if you're feeling like the universe is supporting you to not work, if you're not feeling value, you previously have always felt very confident and in alignment with your job. You loved it.
Yes.
And it was something you were very, you know, you really got a lot of joy and a lot of accomplishment and a lot of that feeling of I've done well.
Yes.
You know, from. And now it's not really that, but it's not because necessarily you're just doing the jobs that no one wants to do. It's also because you've not filled your purpose there. I don't mean it in that intent, but you're aware of how much more you have to give, and you don't have the space to give it in at your workplace anymore. You've sort of reached your peak. And even if you keep achieving all of the goals and getting everything done and you're doing really well, you're not going to feel accomplished, because it's sort of all stuff that is now, whereas before you might not have known and you felt really good once you had done it. It's all stuff now that's like, yep, easy, done, and there's no sense of growth, no sense of evolution with it, or hey, look, I just learned something new and how good does that feel because I smashed it out. And so it's about looking at the areas of, well, what areas would you like to start growing in? Because if the universe is supporting you not working, if you're feeling undervalued, if you're feeling like you're not experiencing enough senses in yourself through that job, maybe it's about asking yourself, well, what else would I like to do with my time? And not necessarily, do I keep working? Do I quit my job? Because they're questions that, well, until you know how you'd like to spend your time, are sort of irrelevant. Because if you just quit your job, especially for you, Karen, because you're such an achiever and a goal setter, that if you didn't have a focus, it would be very hard for you to step into nothing. And it would be very hard for you to not feel that you've got a purpose. And two, that's sort of what's coming in from this other person being there. You feel like your purpose has been replaced. And so looking for the value and the purpose that you offer to that company, not just through the physical typing and the to-do jobs, and starting to sort of see past that. And I think it's important to maybe give Ben a call and connect with him and just say, hey, how are you doing, buddy? You know, like, is there anything you would like to explore? Is there ideas that you've had that you've never gone for that we could look at starting to create together? Because I'm aware now we've got everything running smooth. We've lost that intensity and that restriction that was holding the business, you know, being held over the business for so long. And we're now in a flow. So how would you like to evolve, and how can I evolve with you? Or asking yourself separate to the company and going back into self and asking, well, how would I like to spend my time and what else would I like to do with it? Because you've got so much other passion and so much other knowledge that, not in a disrespectful way to your job, surpasses it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I've really not really found that answer yet in all the work that I've done. It's probably one of the things that I sort of know, but it doesn't feel enough either, really.
Well, and because not in a rude way, and this is something too to connect into, is you're not valuing yourself. So you're not going to feel valued by others until you start to realize that value in yourself and go, you know what, I'm valuing myself and my time by actually honoring the knowledge that I have within me, by not acknowledging the passion I have within me. Because the whole time you're ignoring your truth or what you'd really sort of like to do, you're not going to feel that value in yourself. So you certainly won't feel it from other people. And I know that this might contradict what you've just said, and it might contradict even how you feel, but you do actually already know what you want to do. You just haven't given yourself the permission to see how.
I sort of do know what I want to do, but the specifics of it is probably
what holds you back. And that's where you can, if you connect, have a look into, I'm sorry, I'm giving you so much home play. Okay, connected to this, look at this. But if you have a look into that space of, okay, so when do I feel value in myself? Forget your job. Just when do I feel like I value myself? And what am I experiencing in those times? You already know that answer now, but it's, so then go on from there and keep asking those questions. Okay, how can I bring that value that I bring to myself into my physical world? Not just in here or energetically, but how can I bring that into my physical world? And how can I then share that with others? What would bring me joy in sharing that value with others? And okay, so we go back to, which you're already well aware of the top of the class, but because you don't have, and this is what's holding you back, the experience or training as such, or the certification to show that you are capable of doing what it is you want to do, you feel it's not possible.
That's always been there.
That's not true at all. You don't need those things in order to be you. There is no university of Karen. It doesn't exist. And what you have to share and your value isn't something that you're going to learn in a book or through a course. It's what you're going to learn through yourself. And that you will then share. And because too, the way that you share is quite unique to others. And it's okay. Another thing for you to look at, that you think you're rude.
Absolutely. I do, because I get told that. I get told it, and I can be quite abrasive, a bit like you, not too empathetic around people that are just not doing what they should be doing.
It's like you just get on with it. And but it's one of those things, it's honor that. And it's like I was saying to Mum last night, and I wondered why it came up, because it came into my awareness this morning, and this is why. Because we were talking about different things, and I was saying to Mum, I'm aware that when I have a child that there's certain things that I have to submit to, that there are lessons that my child would need to learn from my parents that they're not lessons they'll get from me, because I simply wouldn't do it that way. But I have to be open to them doing it the way they've got to do it. I was like, but there's certain things where it's just a dead set no, that's just not going to happen. But I was saying to her, like television, that's, what they receive, their input is going to be very, it's going to have a lot of awareness on it. And it's like I said to Mum, I remember as a kid we weren't allowed to watch trash. You know, occasionally we'd get a Home and Away or a Neighbours in. This is when we lived in the UK, like or even over here, like we'd occasionally get something like that in, but not really. Most of the time it would be a few cartoons, but it was sort of like documentaries, or, you know, like in England we had a show called The Really, Really Wild Show, and which was all about animals. It was brilliant. It was so engaging. And Blue Peter, where they taught you all these different things, but they were things that I used to really enjoy. And Dad would often watch adult documentaries, and we would watch those. And I was saying to Mum, you know, I've got an awareness that we didn't watch much crap growing up. But I remember Dad walking in, and excuse my language, and saying things like, if he saw trash on the TV, like, turn that effing shit off. It's just crap, it's this. And Mum's like, I know the way he used to say it. I'm like, but he needed to say it that way, Mum. Because I needed to grasp the concept as a child. If he just walked in and said, oh, it's probably not the best thing to watch, I could have watched those things and received the messages that they were telling me. I could have taken those things on. But because I understood, no, this is just sort of entertainment for the mind. It's not actual reality. It's not to be absorbed. I only got that message because of Dad's definitiveness with that shit. And if he didn't say it in that way, I probably would have ended up watching a lot more trash on television, you know. And sometimes we might, what other people perceive as rude or abrupt isn't. You know, that was, you know, Dad, and like I said, Mum, that was coming from a genuine space of love.
Yeah.
You know, he might have said it in a way that seemed cross, but if your intention is love, if your intention is coming from a true space, it doesn't matter how it's given. Yes, we can certainly, we don't need to go around just shouting and swearing at people. But sometimes I can't tell you how many times I've had to say things to people. One of my girlfriends, many times I've made her cry, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I'm really not sorry at all. Like, I'd love to actually be sorry, but I'm kind of not, because you needed that. And it's about honoring in yourself that you're prepared for a moment to be seen as something you're not, for others to get what they need.
And that's very, very true. And I wish even Lauren was here to listen to this, because this is more or less why, you know, where we butt heads, because she just doesn't think that I'm sympathetic or empathetic near enough to her pain and suffering as a child, and trauma and whatnot. But that's far from my intention, and far from the truth for me, is to the complete opposite end of the scale. You know what I mean? It is awful, because I do love her so much that I'm doing it the way that I do it. Exactly what you're saying. And some people are ready to hear it that way, and some people aren't. You know, Amanda, for one, she can tolerate it at times. She says ouch sometimes to me, but she knows, you know, that I'm not saying it from that space. And there's only a couple of people I can do it with, but most people,
And it's too, it's one of those things that I know this sounds different, but for me, when people, and why I don't offer much empathy to people, is because whenever I receive empathy, I feel disempowered. I feel like someone doesn't trust me enough to get through what I'm going through. That they don't know my strength. And I, you know, and well, it's certainly how I used to feel, you know, judged, like, what, do they not think I'm strong enough? Like, why are they saying sorry? This isn't something to be sorry about. It might look bad, but this is epic. I'm going to learn this and this and this. And I've grown in this way and I've grown in that way. Like, you know, my car accident, one of the main things people always used to say to me, oh, that's awful. It's like, there was no bad part about it. The experience was euphoric. What I remember of it, the physical pain, I had to train myself so well in my brain how to receive pain and honor it. You know, the physicality of being able to move my fingers, you know, being told that's never going to happen, and having to push myself to the point where I'm like, no, that they don't get to choose that. It's up to me. You know, and people say, oh, it's so awful you had this car accident. I'm like, are you kidding me? It was the best thing of my life. But we often, people perceive things as, they put a connotation to something as to whether it's good or bad. You know, people have to, for some reason, think something has to be good or bad. And so people offer that empathy, like, oh, that's so, I'm so sorry. And so that's one of the reasons why, for me, I don't offer much empathy, because I don't want to disempower somebody. I don't want somebody to feel that I don't feel that they are capable, or that they are strong enough, or that they have enough in them to surpass this. When I sort of speak the truth or share that truth or my truth with somebody, I want them to know, hey, you know what, this might not feel good, but I know that you have the power to take this on. And even if you were to say to Lauren, you know, like, I know sometimes I might come across as harsh, but it's not because I doubt you. It's because I honor you. It's because I love you, and I appreciate and I value you and your strength and your capability. And I can see you are still here. Despite all of it, I can see what you can overcome. And because, you know, I think sometimes we put so much emphasis on love means, oh.
Yes.
And it's like, no, sometimes love means bang. Like, it just means a straight up no, you know, like, that's sometimes what love means. And it might take time for those things to be received. It might be of several years before Lauren truly can acknowledge your love. But as long as you know you are coming from a space of unconditional love, ultimately, when she receives it, that is what she will receive.
Probably that's what I want to be. If you really think about what I want to be, I mean, you know what that is, but it's that element that I can that I don't want to charge people for things, and I don't necessarily, you know, I just want to be that seed planter, that person that just plants a seed for them to say, I never thought of it that way. Let me go away and contemplate, you know, let me mull over that. Let me see what that's all about for me. That's really who I am. I'm the seed dropper, really. That's my purpose, really, I believe. I don't know if you see that or not. I think we've probably touched on that before, but that doesn't seem enough either. Like that, but that's powerful. I know it's very powerful, but it doesn't seem to be, you know.
And it feels like
an
that's
income winner, like, you know what I mean, you know.
And it's not just the income, it's the fact that, which is the part that it feels like you don't like about it, is you don't get to see the results.
The results, absolutely.
Because you can drop a seed for somebody and you know that might take them a week to digest, and then it might take 2 years of that seed being nurtured and watered and growing and evolving before they, you know, fully see its transformation. And by which point they don't know that it came from that tiny little seed that you dropped in, and you don't know what ended up happening. And so that's sort of also where it's that it's not enough for you. But whereas if you allow yourself to ask why you need to know, and it's one of those things that when you see and you have that sense of knowing that life is beyond us, that it is not just about our reality of what we see and what we experience, that who we are is echoed into everything we touch and that we experience and the people that we connect with. And we will never see our fullness because it is out in the world. It is everywhere, and we'll never know what we created. And I guess when you take that knowledge and you really honor it, that I will never know, you know, the depth of what I have done for people or for the planet. But I can feel that who I have been is true and loving, then you know that that is what you have done for the world, and you don't need to see the physical manifestation or creation of it or outcome of it to know that that is what you have projected. And if you allow yourself to see that, you can allow yourself to be the seed dropper, and you don't know that dropping those seeds isn't through blogs or
you
and
know so much, Beck. God, you read and this is, as you know, you may have noticed, I've turned the camera on this time. I never normally have the camera on. I don't like putting myself out there. I don't like social media. I don't like telling people what I'm up to and what I'm doing. I don't even like the sound of my voice. Well, lots of people don't. But when you, last week even, or the week before, the first time you had it, and I was the one that spoke the most. That's not normally me. I'm the one that sits in the background and listens and observes and doesn't put my hand up.
And
I'm not the one that, yes. But there's a part of me that knows I need to do this. I need to be able to turn that camera on. I need to be able to put myself out there. And it's really, really difficult, really difficult.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
and
getting?
The thing, and because I know, I know that feeling of, because, well, I mean, how long ago did I start translating truth? And it's taken me to now to start actually sharing. I'd do sessions, but I wouldn't share. I tried, but obviously because, well, I didn't realize the stuff with the eyes and stuff like that, but why I couldn't get the computer stuff together. But I came to that space of realizing, well, I'm just going to have to start sharing this way, because I can't do the typing and all of that stuff. I can't do the screens. I can't do the just one-on-ones, because also there's and this is where it's restrictive for you too in what you're sharing and with your job. But whereas when you do something that's broader, like a blog or a vlog or whatever, you can capture more of an audience. And you're able to, instead of just share that message with one person, you can share it with 100 people. And the one person you share something with sometimes might not be ready to receive it. And so you then go, retract. Whereas actually, if you were sharing it with 100 people, 10 of those people might receive it. And so you'd be like, actually, this is valuable. This is worth sharing. And it's not about the ones that don't receive it, because they might just not be ready, and they will receive it in the time that they can. It's about sharing what you can whilst you can, and about being just you. It doesn't have to be, that was so much of what my restriction was, that we sort of given this ideal of to who you have to be, the person you have to be, the way that you have to be, the way you have to present, the way you have to share. There were so many limitations. And so why, very fortunately for me, like yourselves, I'm not much of a social media, right? And I don't, I've never really watched, information videos or those sorts of things, because to be fair, I'm still learning from me. When I stop learning from me, then I might go, hey, I might go watch a video about this and this and this. But actually, until I've stopped gaining my own knowledge and seeing just how much I already have within me, I'm not prepared to do that. And so I'm fortunate in the way of, I don't feel I have to conform to certain things, because I don't have the ideas of necessarily what they look like. Yet I still had those certain beliefs that I had to be a certain person and in a certain space in my life. And, it was actually one of the questions that was asked was, if the inner journey and self-growing never ends, how is it possible to help others if first you are supposed to help yourself? And it's like, well, because one, we can go on that journey of self, but it's sort of like, I always remember there was a book I read years ago. It was fantastic. It's not about religion, but it was called Conversations with God. And I don't remember much of it, but one line I do remember was, if you have an idea that you are a generous person, but you never do anything generous, all you do is have an idea about yourself. And it's the same with this. Well, how do we help others when we're supposed to be helping ourselves? And it's like, well, when you can come to an understanding in yourself and an awareness of yourself, then yes, you can absolutely share it. But sometimes you might not get that awareness or that understanding unless you're sharing. And, and so it's about, I guess, respecting enough for yourself and in yourself that we're never going to know it all. The journey of inner knowing, the journey of inner growth, of evolution in self never ends until the day we die, and after, we will always be evolving. We will always be growing. We will always be learning. We will always be receiving. We will always be understanding. And so we're never going to attain that space of which we might think, oh, now I'm ready to share everything because now I've got everything down pat. It's like, no, accept that you're never going to have it all. You're never going to be it all. And that if we do know something, just because we're still on a journey of understanding with one thing doesn't mean that we don't have a good enough strength and knowledge of something else that we can't share it. And it's about finding that balance of still honoring yourself and learning for yourself and through yourself, yet share what you know. And I guess, you know, that's the thing of going step back and go, well, actually, I do feel this, and I know it's not going to resonate with everyone, but I know that this can make a difference for someone, and I'm prepared to share that. And, you know, there'll be things that we do, you know, I'll teach people in this program, which is starting on, I think it's Monday, about intention. And, you know, one of the things that I know is going to come up, I don't know everything that's going to come up, but I know one of the things that's going to come up is about the fact of how important it is to set your intention each day.
Yes. Yeah, I'm big on intentions. I do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, I don't set the intention every day, but I certainly don't believe that you need to do much more than have the intention for anything to work or
and
anything
that's the
to
thing.
come.
And there's certain things that it's like, yeah, I can share that knowledge because I appreciate and I value the importance of that intention. Yet last night, I didn't write my intention for today. This morning in bed, I did I said my intention and did a meditation and set my intention. But it's one of those things that there'll be certain things that we share that we might not embody. Like I said also last week, when I share this program, there's so much that we're going to learn that we're going to have to unlearn because it no longer will resonate. But we have to receive that knowledge first in order to progress. And, you know, our progression is always taking place, so we have to honor that in others. And so sharing what you already know doesn't mean you need to know it all, because if I went in and just started teaching people about connecting into different energies and receiving information straight away and getting this and this and this and this and this, people's brains explode and lives go wrong. And things happen, you know, people don't honor the messages and the truth that they receive. Whereas when you take your time and you do it on a journey, you can receive those things. And so know that some of the things too that you have to share might not even be true to you anymore, but you know it's a great starting block for somebody else. And so you're still willing to share it because you know it helps. And you know it can make that shift. And I think it's just going to be a matter of giving yourself that permission to start. And for me, this COVID-19 was the beginning, you know, in many ways, because I knew it was coming, and the fears that I was facing around, you know, the message that I'd been given that I was going to die this year. And then getting sick and all of that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe it's happening. You know, it took that for me to go, enough, Beck, enough of this not sharing, enough of your fears of that you won't be accepted, that you won't be received, that you're too much, that people won't understand, that you're not pretty enough, that your voice is croaky, that, you know, you don't know how to use the cameras and you don't know how to share the information, and you don't know what websites and how to do this and all of that. Just begin and it will all come to you, and it does. You know, it's like, once you start, just get going and everything else just flows. And it's about just making that choice to begin. It's like you might not know how to run the marathon, but you start with that first step. And you don't know what hurdles will be on the way. You don't know what people will get in your way. You don't know what birds might attack you. You don't know what's going to happen. But unless you begin, you're never going to know. And the only step you need to know is the one that is right in front of you. You don't need to know what's a mile ahead, because if you're looking at what's a mile ahead, you're not looking at what's right here.
Mm.
And if you're not looking at what's right here, that's when you stumble.
Mm.
You know, we don't need to be focused on the future and the outcomes and what's this going to happen and what's going to happen with that. It's just, what am I present to now? What is happening right now? Because that's all we can control. That's all we can take ownership of and be present to. We can't be present to our future because it's simply not here yet.
Mm. Mm.
And so just begin, Karen.
Well, I began by turning the camera on. So.
Yes, you did. And that's it. And that's the thing. So many people, we have begun, even for you, Jace. I know there's so many things where you're like, sort of wonder what I might be doing with this. Well, what's going to come from this, or, because so much of this is new for you. And yet what's so good is, one, you are such a quick learner. So you really don't have to worry about that. You receive very quickly and clearly, and you also have a good sense of self already. And so even though for you some things might be like, I wonder what's going to come from this, even if I was to tell you right now, you would not believe it. So for you, for now, know that, okay, your journey is nothing like you've seen it. I know that might sound, oh, well, then what I'm doing wrong? No, not at all. Not at all. But the journey that you're on is just beginning. But it's sort of like, I got the message from my daughter, obviously that's not born yet, is connecting in with her. And she had given me this message a few weeks ago, and she was like, you're learning to walk, Mummy. And I'm like, and she was like, listen to me, you're learning to walk. And she was like, you've done all the little bits, all the hard work. From birth, a child is learning to walk. They are grabbing things, they are feeling things, they're getting to know their feet, they're getting strength when they roll, they're getting, understanding balance when they hold on to things. There is such a process for a child to learn just to walk. But once they learn to walk, they are running. Like that process all the way up, it might take some kids 2 years to learn how to walk. But once they get it, they are going. And and that's what Ella was saying to me the other day, was this message of, you're walking now, Mummy, and soon you'll be running. She's like, you've done all of the hard work. And it's sort of similarly for you, Jace, and Karen, and so many of us at this time, like the world, that we have all been putting in the back work. We've all been doing the grounding and the founding work. And now we are taking those first steps, and soon we will be flying. And it's just, this is a time of beginning. It really feels like that. There is such an energy around that is just, there is so much new life coming to this world, not just as in new people or new things, but as in within ourselves. We are all coming to new spaces of awareness and awakening to new things and new concepts and ideas and knowledge of self. And it's just such an exciting time. And we don't need to know what's going to happen, but if we just keep taking those steps, we will get to see, and we can enjoy that journey. It's going to be really good. I'm very excited about it, if you can't tell.
Dive deep within my own mind and to trust the intuition.